Um, I did last time. So yeah. So these don't all have to be present for like the music to be considered lo-fi, but there should be at least a few of them. And then also, just because a song sounds like shit doesn't make it lo-fi. You can have like really well-produced stuff that has like high production value and high quality that isn't lo-fi, but it still might sound bad. Um, so and then also distortion by itself doesn't qualify as lo-fi. So for example, you might listen to something like death metal, which has a ton of distortion, but it's pretty high production value, pretty clean recording. Compared to something like black metal, which we had a presentation on, which is often recorded with like cheaper gear and kind of sounds worse as far as the recording quality goes. So I think you can go to the next slide. I can't remember. Oh, no, actually go back. My bad. Okay, so lo-fi isn't a genre in itself. So saying that lo-fi is a genre is kind of like saying that loud music or like weird vocals is a genre. It's characteristic of the recording process, and it could exist in any genre. However, the term is often associated with certain specific subgenres and movements. So like 90s indie rock or like lo-fi hip-hop beats to chill and study to. So that's where you get like the genre associations. To the point where now, like when you say lo-fi, people often think of like either like lo-fi indie or like lo-fi hip hop beats to chill and study to. And then also, I just want to comment on like the meta of the presentation. So like it's such a broad concept, lo-fi, that it's difficult to choose exactly what to highlight. So what I've tried to highlight is kind of what I think is important to the history of lo-fi music, some important people, and then also what I think the significance of lo-fi is. So I'm going to do a bit of like armchair analysis at the end. Hopefully it's not too bad. So we can get into the origins of lo-fi music. Yeah. So you can see Brian Wilson there. I like the picture of him on the left on those two because he looks 12 in the first one and 40 in the other one, and they're probably only like a few years apart. So lo-fi originated due to very practical reasons. Obviously, the affordable recording equipment used by home musicians simply just sounded bad, leaving tons of recording artifacts and unintentionally imparting a lo-fi sound. So it's difficult to say what the first lo-fi song or album was because like there are definitely like lost tapes of people just singing into their like shitty microphones and like I'm sure as soon as they were invented. But it can be argued that its acceptance by musicians began with Brian Wilson's home recordings, as in the album Smiley Smile, which was recorded at their home studio that I believe Brian Wilson built. I'm not the biggest Beach Boys fan, but I like them. I just don't know that much about them. So we're actually going to listen to the song Little Pad off of Smiley Smile. And you can hear a lot of the lo-fi elements. You can hear some of the like harmonic distortion, sorry, technical term, but like you'll know when you hear it. And you can hear some of the playfulness and like the amateur musicianship sound come through in that song. So yeah, we could switch to that.
If I only had a little
If I only had a little
in Hawaii. Sure would like to have a little pad in Hawaii.
Okay, yeah. So very pretty song. That's the album that Good Vibrations is off of, if you guys are wondering. So yeah, that's kind of the origin of lo-fi. I think a lot of artists afterwards became a lot more comfortable with recording more amateur kind of sounding stuff. Like just off the top of my head, like Neil Young's After the Gold Rush kind of sounds a lot more amateur in its recording technique compared to like some of his other stuff. So thank you, Brian Wilson. Okay, and we can move on to the next part. So section 2, Lo-Fi Heroes is what I called it. I was going to have a section called Lo-Fi Zeros, but there's enough hate in this world without me hating on people more than I already do. So first of all, R. Stevie Moore, the one and only. So he's really important to the development of lo-fi. The godfather of home recording is what he's been called. Huge influence on other lo-fi bands, from Guided by Voices to He Who Will Not Be Named in like the bottom tile there, who was also important to lo-fi. He was the son of a Nashville session guitarist, so he has a musical background. And he started making his own home recordings in the 70s. And it was lo-fi out of necessity because he couldn't afford, better equipment. And his unapologetic approach and kind of weird antics made him a cult underground figure, even in the 70s. And it set the stage for future lo-fi artists and their own aesthetics. So yeah, you can see him with his really eclectic like guitar and his gear and his studio. And he's been doing this since the 70s. He had like a cassette club in the 70s and 80s, I think. So he had like a weird fan base that would order his cassettes by mail. And yeah, he's still active, and he's collaborated with a lot of like artists like Ariel Pink there. So we're going to listen to a song off of his compilation Phonography, which came out in 1976. And it's a compilation of some of his earlier cassettes. So, and you're going to hear this sounds a lot more lo-fi than Brian Wilson's stuff. We won't listen to the whole song, just in the interest of time. But you can hear sort of when he sings, like the clipping and the microphone, and you can hear like the bass sounds kind of filtered almost, like it doesn't have the high end, and that's just due to the limitations of like the recording equipment that he was using. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to somebody else. Daniel Johnston, another legend of lo-fi. I put some of his art there on the left side, and I love that picture of him from the cover of 1990, where he's like pointing at the plant that he drew. So there's a huge overlap between lo-fi, DIY, and outsider music, just because of the nature of like DIY music and outsider music. These are artists who might not have the means to high quality recording equipment, but they still want to create art, And so they do what they can with what they have. And Daniel Johnston was one of those people. So he got to start handing out home recorded cassettes while working at a McDonald's in Austin, Texas, in like the 80s, I believe. So really amazing dedication to his craft. And he inspired all sorts of musicians who came after him, from the deep underground to like full mainstream artists. If you go to the next slide, I have a picture of Kurt Cobain wearing the Daniel Johnston album shirt, and then Flea looking like a douchebag. I don't know if he's an actual douchebag, but he looks like one there. So yeah, somebody like Kurt Cobain, who had an appreciation for underground art, but he was definitely inspired by Daniel Johnston, and he helped bring him to the mainstream as well with the attention that he got from, Kurt Cobain rocking his album on his shirt. You go back. So again, he didn't record lo-fi because of choice, or at least not initially, but he strongly contributed to the associations of lo-fi with rawness and genuineness in art. Really simple songwriting, but also really beautiful. You can hear like the passion in his voice. He was kind of like a tortured artist. He had a lot of mental health struggles, but his music comes off as very like innocent and childlike, is how it's often described, and it's pretty awesome. So this is, I think, the most lo-fi song that we're gonna hear. It's the song "Walking the Cow," which came out in 1983, and incredibly lo-fi, and it's awesome. So we can go to that.
This is the pig. Do you hear the frog?
Hi, how are you? Try to remember, but my feelings can't know for sure. Try to reach out, but it's gone. Lucky stars in your eyes. I am walking the cow. I really don't know how I came here. I really don't know why I'm staying here. Oh, 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 oh. I am walking the cow. Try to point my finger, but the wind is blowing me around in circles. Circles. Lucky star.
Yeah, so again, I hate to cut it off, but you can hear how lo-fi it is, obviously with the recording quality, but also like I think the percussive sound there is just his fingers hitting the keys of his like toy synthesizer. But he didn't let his means stop him, and I think a lot of artists who came after him took that message or like that intention to heart, and it influenced them and their work. Thanks. Yeah, so that's that's Daniel Johnston. We can move on to the next topic or next group of artists. So 90s slacker rock, ton of incredible bands. Sorry for the pop there. Ton of incredible bands from the 90s whose music is defined by the low production value and DIY aesthetics, which they, for the most part, chose to use. So a lot of these bands they elected to use lower fidelity recordings for whatever reason. We'll get into that later. So they popularized lo-fi as a production choice and not just a technological limitation. So some of the ones I have here: Beat Happening, Television Personalities, Guided by Voices, Early Ween, especially like The Pod, which is an insane album. Pavement, Modest Mouse, Neutral Milk Hotel. This looks like an AI image. I don't know why, but it's not. It just looks like one. Dinosaur Jr. and Olivia Tremor Control, just to name a few. So I'm gonna play a song from Guided by Voices, which I think is like the epitome of 90s lo-fi DIY slacker rock and that aesthetic. It has like the lo-fi. It has like the inspiration from like early like sort of 60s songwriting. And it's a really great song. It's from 1995. It's Game of Pricks by Guided by Voices. So we'll listen to that. Cool. Okay, so that's a pretty simple song, but that still has a lo-fi aesthetic, and it takes a lot from like earlier artists like Daniel Johnston and Brian Wilson. So now somebody from that same era, who I have a picture of there, Phil Elverum of the Microphones. I think he's somebody who started taking the aesthetics of lo-fi and pushing it further than just like using shitty recording equipment. So it's somebody there's a lot of mind to like the production quality and pushes the aesthetic value, I guess, and like boundaries of the production style in his music. So, manipulating the sound quality, putting a tape hiss here or like clipping distortion there, and it all comes together naturally, but it extends the boundaries of the production style, like I said earlier. So we're just going to listen to a bit of I Want Wind to Blow off of The Glow Part 2, which I'm sure everyone here has listened to. But maybe now you can hear the lo-fi sounds more so.
Shutters just shut up. There's no black or white, no change in the light, no night, no golden sun. The sound of cars, the smell of bars, the awful feeling of electric heat. Under fluorescent light, counts, there's sacrifice, there's hard feelings, there's pointless waste.
And then another artist that I was gonna maybe put here instead of the microphones, who I think like really pushed the boundary of the lo-fi production technique, is Olivia Tremor Control, whose like album cover I have on the top left there. But I thought maybe since more people probably listen to the microphones, it might be better. But you should check out Olivia Tremor Control. They get into like almost like sound design experimentation in some of their works. It's like musique concrète a little bit. Okay, so now we've covered 90s slacker rock. So direct descendant of 90s slacker rock is going to be the like 2010s revival of lo-fi music. I think some of you guys might be a little too pretentious for this stuff. So like Alex G, Car Seat Headrest, Mitski, Mac DeMarco, Deer Hunter, personal favorite. Also, as I was making this, I realized that Mac DeMarco and Ben kind of look like they're brothers a little bit. I don't know if you've had that before. Yeah, so these are artists who were like heavily inspired by the 90s slacker rock aesthetic, and they also so I mean recording equipment became even cheaper than it was in the 90s, and a lot of these artists just used sort of older recording equipment to sort of recreate those sounds, but from an even lower fidelity perspective, because I think a lot of this was done in the bedroom, like in their bedrooms or like in like garages, like no professional recording studios. So we're gonna listen to a song from Makeout Videotape, which is Mac DeMarco's band before he was solo. And I probably could have picked it's off the album Yin Yang from 2010. Probably could have picked a more interesting song from that album, but I picked one called Terry Peronich, which is named after like a Edmonton area realtor, which is really random. You can see like his name on some benches if you drive around. So I thought that was cool. So that's what we're gonna listen to this song. Great album cover as well. Okay, yeah. Oh, they spoiled the next one. So yeah, that was a song from Makeout Videotape. I think there's a lot of quality in this era. I think there's a lot of shit too. There's a lot of people who are just like lazy and would they traded lo-fi for like actual good songwriting. But something like Halcyon Digest is like one of my favorite albums of all time. And so I think there is like, I think this era of like lo-fi gets maybe a little panned by more pretentious radio music folk, but it definitely has a lot of merit to it. So yeah, I just want to highlight this in particular because it's a lot of the music that I got into music listening to. And now we're going to move on from rock music to a bit more experimental stuff. So James Ferraro, I mean, like, I can't say anything about this guy that hasn't already been said. One of the masters, if not the master of like lo-fi production. He got to start making noise music with Spencer Clark as the Skaters. And then he went on to make all sorts of music under a million different pseudonyms. He's infamous for his like pseudonyms. So I've picked a few that I want to highlight. Some of my favorites. Cruisin' the Night Biker Strip, 1977. Pan Dolphinic Dawn. And then Chinese Menstrual Dream. That's another one. I'm sure people here have their favorites as well. So his music ranges from droning tribal noise to minimalist new age synth work to satirical glam punk and everything in between. It sounds like a fever dream when I'm describing it, and it kind of is. His aesthetics as well, like the collages and the black and white sort of cassette covers were kind of a characteristic of the time of like drone tapes and noise tapes that were going on in like the mid 2000s experimental scene. His lo-fi period ranged from 2004 when he started making music to the release of Farside Virtual in 2011, which was a big influence on vaporwave, and also for some reason his most popular album. But his earlier stuff sounds nothing like Farside Virtual, if you've heard that one. It's really difficult to give you an idea of what his music sounds like in a short period of time. I mean, a lot of these albums, like, you need to listen to the whole thing, and they're like an hour long to really get a feel for it. But I'm going to try here just to like give you an idea of what his music sounds like. But you should definitely go check out a lot of his discography. It's endless. There's like a million albums, and I'm sure you'll find something you like. So first I'm going to play something I think I put it in. One of his pseudonyms, or I guess the first one I picked was Last American Hero. So this is one that I think anyone could get into. It's like kind of like lo-fi ambient Americana. It's got this like MIDI acoustic guitar being played. The cover is great too. I think it's like from a stock photo that was called like Arizona Businessman or something like that. Yeah, so I mean, I'll let the music speak for itself. It's nothing crazy here, but yeah. And we'll just listen to a bit because it's long and heavy. You can really hear the tape hissing in this one. Yeah, so that was Last American Hero. A lot of his stuff is extremely conceptual as well, so I really implore you to go in and read some of the concepts here. So this one's another pseudonym of his called Edward Flex. Presents Do You Believe in Hawaii? It's got a really great cover. It's like a weird satire of like bodybuilding culture and like Hawaii, I guess. There's a lot of like sampled like grunt sounds. And I'll just play like a bit of this. Again, this is one of those ones that you just have to listen to in one sitting. and it's one of those things that like James Ferraro stuff is like every time you listen to it, you find something new that you enjoy, or hate, I guess, if you don't like this sort of stuff, in his work. But it demands re-listening. So, this is just to give an idea, but yeah, I hope you guys can get the idea of like the lo-fi and how he's pushing the boundary of lo-fi production techniques. So, yeah.
Yeah, you, come here. Had enough? I didn't think so. Push you to the bottom.
Okay, and I realize like a lot of this stuff, like if you hear it for the first time and you're coming at this without like a pre-existing appreciation of like ambient music and like experimental music, it might seem like dog shit to you, which is fair. But it's worth like trying to get into because I think there's so much like gold in his discography. Yes, but I've also picked something from his like glam punk era. So it's a song off of Night Dolls with Hairspray. Another great cover. And this one's a lot more catchy, a lot more melodic. And yeah, I feel like anyone could like this album. So okay, yeah, so that was off of Buffy Honkerberg's Answering Machine. This is also like this album's great because it's like a satire of like 80s high school film, like movies, like teen movies and stuff like that. And there's some gold in this album. So if you want to get into Ferraro, maybe this is the place to start. I don't know if other people would agree with that, but I'd say so. Okay, we can go on to the next group of artists. So related to James Ferraro is just the movement of hypnagogic pop in general. This is a great meme highlighting some of the great albums in hypnagogic pop. So it's where are my notes? So it's kind of like experimental lo-fi music. It ranges from like abstract droning works to more like more melodic songwriting. You can see in like the meme, you can George Clanton's Slide, which is like a pretty non-experimental album, I guess I would say. A lot of Ariel Pink stuff is super melodic, catchy songwriting. But it's like filtering like nostalgia for the 80s and like FM radio stuff through like cursed audio quality and like experimental songwriting techniques. So a lot of gold in this genre. I've just picked a few artists here to highlight. So I'd say the golden era of like hypnagogic pop was from like maybe like 2005 to like 2012. It influenced movements like chillwave and vaporwave as well. The artists that I have here, so that's Pocahontas in the top left. They did like tribal ambient, I guess. And then the Savage Young Taterbug, super underrated artist. I wouldn't know how to describe his music, but it's great. Dean Blunt and Inga Copeland. Dean Blunt is like one of the goats of hypnagogic pop. DuckTales as well. And you have some more recent artists like what are they called? Bar Italia. They're a good hypnagogic pop band who's like active right now. I'm not gonna play any music from here, but worth checking out for sure. Especially Pocahontas. They're a personal favorite. So okay, now we're gonna move on to just an artist that I particularly wanted to highlight. So Dirty Beaches, also known as Alex Shang Hung Tai. So he recorded under the name Dirty Beaches from 2007 to 2014. Cool ass dude. That's period. So he filtered his life experiences as like a Taiwanese Canadian diaspora through haunting lo-fi with influences ranging from Elvis to Les Rallies Day New Day. The low fidelity evokes nostalgia and its corruption of memory of your youth haunting you through a busted transistor radio. His most important work is probably Badlands, that one all the way to the left, which is based on his dad's experience growing up as a rockabilly-obsessed youth in 1950s Taiwan. And it reminds me a lot of the movie Brighter Summer Day, if you guys have seen that one. You can really hear the rockabilly influence. And also, I just want to mention he was in Twin Peaks in the revival. He played in one of the bands at like the bar. I forget what the bar was called, but yeah. So we're gonna listen to two songs from Dirty Beaches. First one's called True Blue. It's off of Badlands. Came out in 2011. The second one is off of a film soundtrack that he did for this short film about West Edmonton Mall Water Park. The song's called Goodbye Edmonton. It's a great song, and the film is really cool too. I forget what it's called. I think it's just called Water Park. It's by Evan Prasovsky. You guys should check it out. But we're gonna listen to True Blue first, and then that one. And the video for this was recorded by Alex Calder, who was in Makeout Videotape. I guess they toured together. So a lot of overlap in these movements. recorded this entire video on his MacBook, like turning it around and like recording, which contributes to the lo-fi, because lo-fi can exist not only in audio, obviously, but also in like image and video. And there's obviously overlap between those aesthetics. Yeah, so now we're going to go on to the song Goodbye Edmonton off of the Water Park soundtrack. It's very short. Chill. The whole documentary is like that, so if you like that vibe, you should check it out. It's also only like 15 minutes long. Okay, so I just want to mention some things I left out, because I did leave out a lot of things in the interest of time. So you could skip to the next. Yeah. Okay, so lo-fi hip hop, obviously. I think I could have picked something more respectable to put as the top left corner there. But I don't know, like Wu-Tang or something like that. But I just wanted to highlight lo-fi, like the chill beats to study to, since it has had a pretty big cultural impact to the point where if you say lo-fi, most likely people are going to think of the YouTube live stream with the girl studying. So I just wanted to mention it. Hardcore punk, obviously, something like Bad Brains, super lo-fi, not by choice, I guess, because like they had access to that sort of recording technology. Dub was super important to the development of like lo-fi production techniques. Heavy use of studio effects while retaining the lo-fi sound had a big influence on a lot of artists that came after it. So somebody like Scratch Perry, another one of the goats of lo-fi production. It's a great album, Super Ape. Black metal, which I mentioned earlier, noise, power electronics like Romley, and Yellow Swans, really great noise artists. Ambient stuff like Groupers, Alien Observer, and then unintentional lo-fi. So like this is an old folk album by Dave Bixby, I think is his name, which sounds like absolute like garbage in terms of recording quality, but like it's an incredible album. And then in the bottom right, I have Big Blood and the Bleeding Hearts, which is like a lo-fi hypnagogic pop, avant folk like country album, and it's really good. I just couldn't fit it in the presentation. So I just want to mention those things that I left out. And yeah, so there's a ton of lo-fi stuff that, you know, you could probably do a part 2 on this presentation if you wanted to. I give you permission. Okay, so now I'm going to get into like some armchair analysis, which I promised earlier, some commentary on lo-fi and like what I think it means and what other people have thought it means. So first of all, yeah, you can go to the next one. So first of all, what is being communicated by lo-fi? It can be a statement on musicianship, so it's neither in technical ability nor in songwriting. In isolation, it doesn't really comment on creativity either. It might communicate production ability, but generally poor production isn't characterized by analog lo-fi sound that we're seeing today. But what it did communicate historically was lack of access to expensive recording equipment. And through its association with DIY, experimental, and outsider artists, it began to signify a sort of sincerity in your art. Music recorded in its rawest form by artists who had no care but to create, without any desire to follow the norms or expectations of popular music and the technique, production and sounds that followed. So this is held true for many years, but has changed probably in the last 20. So with the increase in affordable hi-fi equipment, so things like audio interfaces with 24 bits, 192 kilohertz sampling, like just insane audio specs, kind of like this one here. This is like a really powerful audio interface. And, you know, I don't think it cost much more than what, like, how much was it? $100, right. So it's actually more expensive now to buy a 4-track or an 8-track recorder to make your music sound like Guided by Voices or something like that, than it is to buy a cheap, even you can buy this even less if it's used. So we have to ask why artists still record in lo-fi, because a lot of artists do still choose to record in lo-fi. So part of it is obviously to imitate their influences. But I would argue that the primary reason now to employ lo-fi is to lend authenticity to your art, to come off as genuine and raw, like somebody like Daniel Johnston or I don't know, Ween. I put them in the middle for some reason. So further, whether it's intentional or not, so whether you're purposely trying to, sound like you're genuine or not, whether you just think it sounds cool, I think it comes from the desire to sound like somebody like Daniel Johnston, who's so dedicated to his art. So use of lo-fi audio further communicates opposition to something like technological determinism in the social sphere, since you're not letting efficiency dictate your art. Whether the opposition is intentional or whether it's sincere or whether it's mindlessly just used as an aesthetic comes down to the artist, I would say. You can also relate these. This is advisory. I'm not an art student. I'm in STEM, so don't take what I'm saying next seriously. I haven't read a lot of these books. Of course, so you can relate these the recurrence of outdated technologies in art to like Baudrillard's simulacra and simulation. How I guess like lo-fi plugins in digital audio workstations would be the absence of basic reality. I don't know. Ewan did that in his presentation. I think he did a lot better job. But I just wanted to mention it because I think it is applicable. And then another way to look at lo-fi is through Mark Fisher's idea of hauntology, the appropriation of older cultural aesthetics to evoke nostalgia for dead futures, visions of buried utopias. I don't think it's broadly applicable to all lo-fi, and certainly not to the majority of artists who like aren't intentionally doing that. Take like Vaporwave, for example, which I think did start out as something hauntological, but then you had just people who were like, oh, it's cool to slow down music and hang out in old malls, which is kind of ironic, considering the original intention of the genre. But I think it is a great way to understand more like intentional conceptual artists like The Caretaker or William Basinski or even Dirty Beaches as well. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so and then I just want to ask, this is a bit for the audience. So now that anyone can record in hi-fi with things like those audio interfaces, ironically, the one I picked is the one here. I didn't know that. So now that anyone can record in hi-fi, is it time to abandon lo-fi? Is the use of lo-fi simply a lazy attempt to evoke the past, to ape the associations of better and more important artists? Or for certain bands, it definitely is an attempt to add character to their boring music. But I think if it's approached with intention and respect, there's still a lot to be explored. And I've just highlighted a few more recent, not so much with Tone Stars Bandit, but more recent artists who are doing lo-fi production, and I think they're doing it well. And I was thinking I'll play the song just while I take questions, but the next song is off of Jeffrey Cantu Ledesma, that album. I forget what it's called. In Summer, that's what it is. Yeah, so I think you can turn on the no questions, yeah. Yeah, no, totally, 100%. I think it can totally be used as just like a way to, like I said, like add character to like boring music, and like as a shortcut to like sounding like you put more effort into your music than you actually did. And that's why I wanted to have a section on like lo-fi zeros, but like I don't know. There's a lot of bands that do that, I still think that you can do it tastefully and you can do it to accentuate your music and make it better as opposed to just like hide flaws. Because I think the flaws come through whether it's lo-fi or not. They just may be a bit more. It might be a bit more submerged when they're caked in like lo-fi plugins. Oh yeah, that's a good question. I think there totally are. I mean, somebody like Tone Starts Bandit, for example. I think if they weren't lo-fi, like their music wouldn't be as interesting. Same thing with a lot of the like I can't imagine James Ferraro and hi-fi, like a lot of those like early. I think they would sound kind of worse, but it's not cloaking the poor music quality. I think the lo-fi is part of the music. Like it's not just like it's not like an attempt to hide bad, like boring guitar riffs. Like it's using lo-fi itself as part of the music. That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. Because I do enjoy like the sound of lo-fi, and I think a lot of the time it does accentuate my, or like, I guess accentuate is the right word, my like enjoyment of an artist. I was talking with Alex recently about some like country album that he found, and like the version on YouTube is like lo-fi and it sounds great, and then he said that like listening to the hi-fi version on Spotify doesn't sound so good. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever wished that an artist was like hi-fi. Oh, maybe actually I think one. Jeff Mangum's like Live at Jittery Joe's compilation. That one sounds so bad that I wish it was a little bit higher. And Neutral Milk Hotel is already kind of lo-fi, but like that one's like there's a baby crying throughout the whole album. So I kind of wish the baby was lower. Cool. Okay. I think that's it for questions. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you again, Danilo, for the amazing talk. High standard as always. I hate to be following up on that next week. Next week, we are going to have free pizza. Yes. And on the side, I will be presenting a seminar on a bunch of songs that I like from Korea. So look forward to that, and I'll see you all at Dewey's. Thanks for coming out.